what is brand? I mean, this is like the big question. I think going from marketing to sales for me, and then being head of sales at an agency, it's a hard thing to communicate what brand is, and then of course to sell it in a lot of ways. But really foundationally talking about brand, it's the space that you occupy in your customer's mind, right? Like a lot of brands think that they are one thing, but the way they're perceived by their audience is actually a completely separate thing. So your brand is somewhere in the middle of that. And something that I like to define brand as, and something that one of our designers on Kooth says all the time, is your brand is a tree in a sea of trees, right? And the trees with the strongest root systems are the ones that are going to flourish and grow the tallest and have the healthiest leaves. Brand is that root system. So if your company knows who you are and what your purpose in the market is, all of your efforts are going to be that much more successful because you know who you are. So that's my little hot take on brand. Very passionate about it, and love to hear other people's description of it too, because it's not just a logo. I think all of us know that, but you'd be surprised how many times it's overlooked in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I love this definition. I love how you like visualize it. Folks, if you have thoughts on it as well, I'm gonna throw one thought in there, which is around like reputation. I think there's like, your brand has a reputation, and there's perception, reputation. There's like the visual side, which a lot of people focus, I think, Maria, on like the visual side. Probably
Oh
not
yeah.
enough on the reputation, right?
Totally. Yeah, I like the definition reputation because another definition I've heard of brand is it's what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah, agreed. And actually, I just realized was not planning this at all. I think the best brands are like this. Take a look at this, everyone. Can you see that? Yeah.
Yep.
Right? Like your brand should be outside of the circle of everyone else.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So,
And we'll talk a lot about that when it comes to the personality of your brand and how that is where the unique components can really come in to set you apart and be memorable. So now that we know what brand is, we want to peel that onion back a little bit deeper and define what a brand archetype is. So I'm sure all of us can relate to brands that we love, right? And sometimes we like don't know why we love them. We have an affinity with them that might be just hard to put a finger on, but it's like we know them. And in some cases, it's like we love them. Like some people are very brand loyal about the shoes that they wear or the hair products that they use. And have you ever wondered like why? Why do I love this brand so much? The reason is because of that brand archetype and of that brand personality. So we'll dig into more about like what brand archetypes are, but if you didn't know what they were actually originated from the Swiss psychologist, Carl Jung, who believed that humanity shares a collective unconscious. So when brands have this archetype defined, they are getting closer to connecting with their audience because we all have a subconscious desire to connect. So it's really science meets psychology meets marketing in a lot of ways, which we all know marketing is, psychology in a lot of ways.
I
Yeah,
love this. Oh, go ahead, Melissa. Go ahead.
I was going to say this to me ties into when you're talking about brand, the component that how it makes you feel, right? Like
Mm,
you can actually just think of some of the brands that you really like or are a big fan of, and like there's a feeling or an emotion that's evoked there.
Speaking of some
absolutely.
big brands, on the next
Mhm.
slide, you actually have some examples of archetypes, and then you have B2B examples on the next slide, which I love too. I think Melissa, you're spot on with like the feeling, like there's an emotional response that happens either consciously or subconsciously, as you kind of get to know this brand or a brand. And the other thing around brand is we talked about messaging and positioning in the first webinar. You need a message and you need a story, you need positioning points for a campaign. Like you have to have that. If
Mhm.
you want the campaign to really excel and like have the fuel it needs to grow beyond maybe those first 3 months, or become an always on campaign, you need this, what Maria's talking about right now. Like you need this core. I'm trying to think of a good analogy off the top of my head, but like this is like, fundamental to like an engine. Like if you're building a revenue engine, like we're all building, if you're missing this piece to the engine, it's really just not gonna, it's either gonna fail at some point or it's gonna be really sluggish in its performance.